this is MJ, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make the Granite Ridge floor poof. Now I'm going to work through a much smaller version because this thing is really big. I haven't quite finished this one yet, but I will show you lots of pictures and I'm going to go through the pattern with you, the stitch chart. So let's get right into it. Okay, so I'm using Brava worsted weight for this pattern, and I'm using 2 strands held together to make it a nice super bulky weight so the poof is nice and sturdy. So in my color A, which is the white here, I've used about 1200 yards. So I'm using the big balls, the Brava 500, but you could purchase 6 of the smaller balls and that would be fine too. Now for color B, which is the charcoal black color, we're going to use closer to the 2 balls, so which is a little over 2,000 yards. And I'll be using a J 6mm crochet hook, so it's going to make a really nice tight stitch. I'm using my Odyssey crochet hook from Furls Crochet. So I'm going to be just using the lighter gray color for the tutorial, just so it's a little bit easier on the eyes to see. So what we're going to start out with is our base. So take your 2 strands of yarn, holding them together. We're going to make a magic ring. So wrap the yarn around your index finger 3 times. Take your hook, slide it through all of those loops. Okay, you're going to take your first, pull it through, and we're going to chain 2. Now we're going to work 12 half double crochets in the ring. Okay, so I'm going to work up those 12 and then I'm going to meet you back. Okay, so once you have 12, what you want to do is push the work out of your way so you can see those loops here. Now we're going to take the tails, just got to untwist and find them here. So here's the tails, and start pulling. 2 of your loops are going to pull in and 2 of them aren't. Okay, so take the loops that have pulled in, take them and give them a good tug. That's going to pull your ring really tight, and now just take your tails and pull. Then we can slip stitch in the top of the first half double to join. Okay, so now this pattern, the stitch pattern that we're working for our mosaic chart, is worked in multiples of 12. So if you start with 12, it doesn't matter how much you increase, our pattern will work. Okay, so it has to be a multiple of 12. So if you want to alter this in any way, that's why we start with the 12, is because we need that for this stitch, the chart pattern. Now I'm not going to work this all the way up to my poof size. So my poof will work a total of 28 rounds of increases for the base, and that's going to bring us right up to 180 stitches. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so for our first increase round, we're going to chain 1. We're going to work 2 single crochet in every stitch around. So this is going to increase from 12 to 24. Every time we do an increase, we're going to go up by a total of 12 stitches. So once you've worked all the way around, we're going to slip stitch to join. And between every increase round, we're just going to work a round of single crochet. When we're working these increases with single crochet stitches, it will start getting really wobbly. So if we do a single crochet round in between, it just helps to even it out. So round 3 is just 1 single crochet in every stitch around, and just double check you have 24 stitches. Just keep that stitch count correct as you go because when we get to the stitch pattern, we need that multiple of 12. And once we get around, again, we'll slip stitch to join, chain 1. And for the next increase, this is how our increase pattern works. We work a single, and then we do an increase. We work a single, and then the increase is we're adding 2 in the next. Single, okay, and then 2 in the next. So now how the increase pattern will work as we increase this is the next increase round, instead of just 1 single crochet, we'll do 2 single crochets before the increase. The next increase, we'll do 3 single crochet before we do the increase. And that's how it works. We just keep adding 1 more stitch before the increase, and that keeps us at increasing 12 stitches every round we increase. So as you work through the pattern, when you get up to round 28, there will be 13 single crochet and then an increase, and that will bring us all the way up to 180 stitches. I'm not going to go that big for this demonstration because it will take way too long, and I want to get into showing you how to work the stitch pattern. So I'm going to complete this around, so I'm going to go up to 36 stitches from 24. Okay, so I finished this off. And if I were continuing now, I would do the next round. So my round 5. I've just finished round 4. So round 5 would be 1 single crochet in every stitch around for a total of 36. Round 6, I'll work 2 single crochet and then an increase, 2 single crochet and then an increase. So you're going to keep increasing in this manner. Now, I am going to switch over to start showing you the mosaic pattern because I don't want to get any bigger than 36 stitches, or it's going to take me a long time to work through. We have a repeat that's going all the way up to row 22, so I have a lot to work through with you for the stitch pattern. So I'm going to stop at 36. But you are working a total of 28 rounds all the way up to 180 stitches. Okay, so when we're changing color, so if you're following along with your pattern, we're now transitioning to the mosaic chart. So the mosaic chart begins here at round 1. So when we slip stitch is when we're going to change color. So I'm going to slip stitch, and I'm just going to drop off color B, and I'm going to bring in color A. And so every time we change, we're going to be changing on that slip stitch. Now, what you want to make sure is that you pull these nice and tight. Okay, that's going to help to keep that join really seamless. We're going to chain 1. Then we're going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch around. So if for your floor poof, you're going to have 180. I'm just working around 36 because I want to keep this small so I can get through it. So I'll complete working around. Okay, so now for round 2 of our mosaic chart, we're going to drop off the white. We're going to change again on the slip stitch, but this time, this is really important, we're slip stitching now into the back loop. So we're getting into the back loop of the pattern now. So we're going to slip stitch into the back loop, changing, pulling through with the gray. And now again, we need to tighten this up really good. Okay, chain 1. Now we're going to work in the back loop all the way around. So the first two rounds of our mosaic chart are basically the setup rounds. And I'm going to show you how, if you're unfamiliar with mosaic, how we're going to work this chart starting at round 3. Round 3 through 22 is the repeat. So I'm going to complete that working around. Okay, so let's take a look at our mosaic chart. So when we're working mosaic crochet, we alternate rows. So A, B, A, B, A, B. Okay, so each round is worked in a different color. We're not changing color throughout a round as it may appear. We're working each round in these colors. So just sort of ignore that pattern you see. That just shows you what the pattern's going to look like. But what you want to pay attention to is whether we're going to have a single crochet in the back loop or whether we're going to do a drop down double crochet. So every time there's an X, you do a drop down double crochet. When you see a blank box, whether it doesn't matter what color it is, you will do a single crochet in the back loop only. This is the color pattern you're going to follow, which you're just alternating. So we've already done 1, which was white here, all in the back loop. We've done 2, which is again, all in the back loop. Okay, but even though you see some white here, it's all done in the gray. Now round 3 is when we start to do the drop down, and this is how it covers up. So row 2 is gray. When we do a drop down double crochet, it covers the gray, creating the pattern. It's really cool, really fun. And we're dropping down 2 rows below and we're working into the front loop. So that's why we have to work in the back loops to leave the front loops available to work down into, okay? So also the pattern is repetitive. So it's really, you're not having to look at every box. Once you know the pattern, you then repeat it around. So for instance, round 3, we're going to do a drop down, 2 single crochet in the back loop only, drop down, 2 single, drop down, back loops, drop down, and so on. It's going to repeat itself. And you'll really get familiar with the pattern as you work. So let's get into round 3 and you're going to see what I mean. And this is, working in the round is great with mosaic. We don't have any tails. We're just dropping and picking up the yarn, and we're going to have a real nice seamless join as well, which is going to look great. Okay, so we're going to be changing color on the slip stitch, and we're always going to be joining into that back loop, okay? So, and it's also important to not get your yarn tangled. I like to try to keep one color to one side, other color to the other side. So let's go in here. We're going to go into the back loop. We're going to drop off color B. We're going to pick up color A. We're going to pull it through, and then we're going to tighten. Okay, we're going to pull and tighten. Chain 1. Now let's take a look at this again. We've got a drop down right away, and then we do 2 in the back loop and a drop down. So that drop down is going right into that first. It's kind of hard to see when it's in the first stitch, but there's that front loop going right down into it. We're going to work a double crochet. Then we're going to do 2 single crochets in the back loop. 1, 2, and then we're doing a drop down, which is above the next stitch. You can see here. Once we get the pattern established, it's always easier. 1, 2, 1, 2, and then a drop down. So just repeat this all the way around your poof. Okay, so the end, we're just having 2 in the back loop. So 2 in the back loops. Okay, and then we're slip stitching to join. I'm going to drop that off. We're going to pick up here. Okay, and chain 1. Again, keeping everything nice and tight. So let's take, I know it's hard in the darker color to see this, but I'm gonna let you know what it is. So we're doing a single crochet in the back loop, and then we have a drop down. 1, 2, 3 in the back loop, drop down, back loop, drop down. So let's start working it. So I've got 1 in the back loop, which is the first stitch you're working into. Okay, and then I think I lost a loop. So let me just do that again. So in the first stitch, back loop. Next will be a drop down. Then we're working 3. 1, 2, 3. Then I always like to eyeball out my pattern. So our drop downs are going on either side of this double crochet, drop down double crochet. It's really important to kind of get a feel for this pattern and where you're placing your stitches, because just one stitch off will mess up the pattern. So you can take a look at your chart. You can see, okay, I'm doing these doubles down around this double. It's just another little tidbit to help you so you don't get messed up. When I started learning how to do this, I'd be working along and look back and be like, oh, the pattern's all messed up. It just takes one stitch to be off. Okay, and then we're working 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then you're doing the drop down, back loop, drop down, and just keep repeating that all the way around. Okay, so when we get to the end, we're ending with a drop down. So as you can see, this white one, so we're having kind of the drop down on either side, and this is how it really keeps the join that you hardly even notice it, because that pattern is just staying consistent. We're going to slip stitch in the back loop, dropping off the gray, picking up A, pulling it through to slip stitch, and just pulling all of that tight. Chain 1 secures it. So let's look at the next row. Again, we can see it's A here. So we're going to do 2 in the back loop, drop down, back loop, drop down, 3, and then again doing the drop down, back loop, drop down. Okay, so we start with 2. So 1, 2, and then we're going to do a drop down, back loop, and the drop down. Then 3, 1, 2, 3, and then this time our drop down, back loop, drop down is going where these 3 stitches are. And then this is just repeated all the way around. So once you get that pattern, like I say, it's just repeated. So it doesn't matter, you know, if we have 36 stitches, which I'm working with, or 180, that pattern just repeats all the way around. So our final stitch is worked in the back loop. And then we're going to slip stitch to join, dropping off A, picking up B again, pulling it through. Tighten that up and chain 1, and let's take a look at our graph. Okay, so back to color B, and we're now at round. Okay, so we're now at round 6. Round 6 is going to be a drop down, 2, drop down, 2, etc. So it is basically just your repeat of round 3, but this time with B. So we'll be dropping down, and like I say, when we're doing a drop down in that first one, it can tend to be a bit tight to get into. And then we're working 2, yarn's getting tied up here. And now the drop down's going in this loop here right between these doubles. This is an easy round to eyeball. 2 in the back loop. And then the next drop down is going in the center of these 3. Okay, so just repeat that now all the way around. So I've ended with 2 in the back loop, slip stitch, dropping off B, picking up A, chain 1. Okay, so I've completed 6 and now I'm on to 7. So 7 is going to be back loop, drop down, and then we have 3 and then our back drop down, back loop, drop down pattern. So 3 in between those patterns there. So the first is in the back loop, and then a drop down. Then we're going to have 3. So 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to take a look. So my drop down, back loop drop down is going on either side now of this double, making sure I'm in the right place. The pattern is going to work out. And also at this point, you can kind of see the pattern coming together, so you can see how we're making this triangle shape here and here. So it's important to look back at your work, make sure it's looking right. And we have 3, so 1, 2, 3, drop down, back loop, above that double, and a drop down. Okay, so just keep repeating this now all the way around. Okay, so we're ending with the drop down on this one. Slip stitching to join, drop off my white to that side, picking B back up. Pull that all tight and chain 1. Okay, so I've completed 7 and we're on to 8. So 8 is with B and it's a repeat of round 5. So we're working 2 in the back loop. So 1, 2, and then we're doing a drop down, back loop, and drop down. So those drop downs are going the 3 loops here, the 3 gray, and then we are doing 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then you should come to those 3 loops again, and it's drop down, back loop, drop down. And you just keep repeating that all the way around. So the next 3 are all in the back loop, and just keep repeating. Okay, and we're just ending with 1 in the back loop. You can see here how nice that join is. You can hardly tell. Pick A back up, pull it through. Keep that nice and tight and chain 1. Okay, so let's see where we're at now. So we're done 8 and I'm on to 9. 9 is a repeat of round 3. So we're doing drop down, 2 in the back loop, drop down, 2 in the back loop, drop down. So this is an easy one. So we're dropping down into that first stitch, 2 rows below, then 2, and the drop down is there in that little stitch on its own, right between those doubles. 2, and then the next one is going between the center here, and that's making a point for that part of the pattern. Okay, and then I'm just going to keep working that all the way around. Okay, so at the end we've ended with 2 in the back loop, and now I'm slip stitching to join. Chain 1. Okay, so 9 is done. We're on to 10. We still got to go all the way to 22. We're getting there though. Okay, so 10 is going to be back loop, drop down, and 10 is a repeat. Let's see, 10 is a repeat of round 4. So we're doing drop down, 3 in the back loop, and then we have drop down, back loop, drop down, 3, and then that pattern. So let's get at it. So 1 in the back loop, and then we've got a drop down, and then I'm working 3 in the back loop. So 1, 2, 3, drop down, back loop above that double, that white double, and the drop downs on the other side of it. So that again is your indicator that you're going in the right places. So 3, 1, 2, 3, and then drop down on one side of that white double, back loop in the top of it, and drop down. Okay, and work that all the way around. Okay, so we're ending with a drop down, and let's slip stitch, chain 1. Okay, and let's take a look at round 11. Okay, so we're done 10. Round 11 now is a little bit different. We haven't done one like this yet. So we are dropping down, back loop, drop down, back loop, drop down, back loop, all the way across. So we're dropping down. Like I say, that first one's always tough to get into. Just dig for it. Move this out of the way. And then back loop, drop down, back loop, drop down. Okay, we're just doing that all the way around. So this one's really easy. It's Just making sure you're hitting the right spot. So we're dropping down, bringing this line upwards. So I'm just going to complete that around off camera. Okay, so you should be ending with a single crochet in the back loop. We're going to slip stitch to join. Oops, this side. And just tighten all that up and chain 1. Okay. So 11's done, and now we're on to 12. So 12 is a repeat of round 4. We're going to do a back loop, drop down, and then 3, and then our drop down, back loop, drop down. Okay, so back loop, drop down, and then 3, so 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to be dropping down but with this double between. So then we've got a drop down, back loop in the white double, and then the drop down on the other side. So you're doing 3 in the back loop, and then you're doing the pattern. So 1, 2, 3, then a drop down, back loop, and a drop down. And you should really see that pattern starting to form here. Okay, and I'm just ending with a drop down. Slip stitch in the back loop, join, tighten that up. Okay, so I finished round 12, and next we'll be on to 13. Okay, so for round 13, we're going to do a drop down, 2 in the back loop, a drop down, 2 in the back loop. So we're just going to repeat that across. So round 13 is another repeat of round 3. A lot of these rounds are just repeating themselves, but I'm still getting through the full 22 round repeat with you. So 1, 2, and then a drop down, 1, 2, drop down, and just keep repeating this all the way around. Finishing this round off with 2 in the back loop, and then we'll slip stitch to join in the back loop. Chain 1, okay, so 13 is done, and now we're on to 14. 14 is a repeat of round 5. So we're going to do 2 in the back loop, drop down, back loop, drop down, and then 3 drop down, back loop, drop down. So we're starting off with 2, 1, 2, a drop down, and 1 in the back loop, and then a drop down. Okay, so that's sort of creating our shape here. and then we have 3, 1, 2, 3, and then a drop down, single crochet, and a drop down. And you can really see your shapes there. So just repeat that around. Okay, so we are ending with 1 in the back loop, little slip stitch to join the back loop, pull those tight, and then we'll chain 1. Okay, let's take a look at our chart again. So we finished 14, we're on to 15. Let's see, 15 is a repeat of round 4 with A. So we're gonna do a back loop, drop down, and then we have 3, and then our drop down, back loop, drop down pattern. So back loop, drop down, and then 3, 1, 2, 3, and then drop down, back loop, drop down, and we're repeating this pattern all the way around. So 3 in the back loop, and then our drop down, back loop, drop down pattern. Okay, so we're ending with a drop down, slip stitch in the back loop to join, chain 1. Okay, so 15 is done. Now we are on to round 16. 16 is a repeat of round 6. We're going to start off with the drop down, 2 in the back loop, drop down, 2 in the back loop, drop down. So starting with the drop down this time. Then 2 in the back loop, then our drop down. The drop down's going to finish our shape here. 2 in the back loop and a drop down. So you can just keep repeating that one all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end. So I ended with 2 in the back loops. We're slip stitching to join. Chain 1. Okay, I know this doesn't look like anything, but it's just to work through the pattern. Okay, so 16 is done, and now we're on to 17. 17 is a repeat of round 5. So we're going to do 2 in the back loop, drop down, back loop, drop down, and then the 3. A lot of these rounds are so repetitive, so like I say, once you kind of get used to them. So let's get into that one. So back loop in the first 2. Drop down, back loop, drop down. And then 3 in the back loop. So 1, 2, 3, drop down, back loop, and then a drop down. You can see how our pattern has really come together. So repeat that all the way around. Okay, I'm finishing with a single crochet in the back loop, slip stitch in the back loop to join, pull tight, chain 1, and let's grab our chart again. Okay, so 17 is done. We're on to 18. 18 is a repeat of round 4. So we're going to do 1 in the back loop, drop down, 3 in the back loop, and then our drop down back loop, drop down pattern. Okay, so 1 in the back loop, we'll do a drop down, then 3 in the back loop, 1, 2, 3, and then here across these 3 is our drop down, single drop down. Okay, you're going to repeat this pattern now around. We're ending with a drop down for this one. Slip stitch in the back loop, picking up a, tighten that up, chain 1. Okay, so we have 18 complete, and now we're on to 19. 19, another repeat of round 3. So we're doing drop down, 2 back loop, drop down, 2 back loop, and repeating that one all the way around. So 2 in the back loop, and then our drop down here is completing this very large shape, diamond oval shape that we've made. And then 2 in the back loop, and the next drop down goes between these doubles. Okay, so just repeat that around. Okay, so I've ended with 2 in the back loop, slip stitch in the back loop to join, tighten up, chain 1, 19 is done. We're on to 20. So 20, let's see, 20 is a repeat of round 5. We're working 2 in the back loop, drop down, back loop, drop down, and then doing our 3 drop down, back loop, drop down. Okay, so we're starting with 2 in the back loop, 1, 2, drop down, back loop, drop down, and then 3, 1, 2, 3, drop down, back loop, drop down, and just repeat that all the way around. Okay, so we're ending with 1 in the back loop, and then we'll slip stitch to join. Tighten that up and chain 1. So next is round 21. We're almost there. So 21 is new. So let let's take a look. So we're doing a back loop, drop down, back loop, drop down, back loop. So it's really simple. It's just we're starting, it's similar to 11, but this time we're starting with 1 in the back loop. So back loop, drop down, back loop, drop down, and just repeat that all the way around. And now I'll drop down in the last and slip stitch to join. Tighten it up, chain 1. Okay, so 21's done. We're on to 22, which is a repeat of round 5, and it is the final round of the repeat. Then you're just going to repeat 3 through 22 for the repeat, and I'll give you what you need to do for working the poof. So for round 22, we have back loop for the first 2. Then we have a drop down, single crochet in the back loop, a drop down, and then 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then a drop down, back loop, drop down. Okay, repeat that all the way around. Okay, so I'm finishing off with 1 in the back loop, slip stitch again to join, and we're back to white. So now what you're going to do for your floor poof is you're going to repeat the rounds that we just covered one more time. So you'll work 3 through 22 one time. Then you're going to work 3 through 9 one time, which if you look at my chart here will be 23 to 29, and it will just give you a really symmetrical look for your pattern. So that is what you need to complete for your poof. So another round repeat of 3 through 22 and then 3 through 9. Okay, so at that point, this is how it's looking. So you're ending with white, and then we're going to be picking back up. Now this is, I've worked with the darker color. So then we get to the decrease rounds. So what you're going to do is, remember you have 180 stitches. So I've already worked a single crochet here in my first stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So if you can remember with the increase, you were to work 13 and then do an increase. So when we decrease, we're now working 13 and then we're doing our decrease. So a single. So to do our decrease, we'll go through, pull up a loop, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And then we'll work 13 again, and then another decrease. Then we'll work around just at, let's see, we've decreased 2. So we'll decrease to 168 stitches. So the next round we'll do 168, and then our next decrease round we'll reduce this section by 1 stitch. So we'll work 12 and then we'll do our decrease, 12 and then our decrease. Then you'll go do a round at 156 stitches. So you'll just basically the same that we did at the beginning, we're just now reversing. So then we'll be doing the next decrease will be 11 stitches and then a decrease, then 10 stitches and a decrease, 9 stitches and a decrease, all the way down. And now I'm going to work some of this off camera because it's going to take me a while. And then we'll get to the point where we need to add in the beanbag filling with our cover. Okay, so for the inside of our floor poof, what I did is I went and I purchased 2 pillowcases. So in a package I got 2, and then I got my mom to sew this together for me. So what we did is we just ripped them apart and she sewed them together so that we now have one large pillowcase. Okay, now you don't want to sew together these parts at the top because this is going to be the drawstring. You can just weave through some yarn so that we can pull this tight to store all the stuffing. Now you don't want to if you're using beanbag filling, you don't want to hand sew it. You want it to be done with a sewing machine, that there's no little beads that are going to pop out. So then we have a really big, and if you choose not to go with this method, you need a really big bag that has a drawstring. I'll give you the dimensions as to what this one is if you want to sew up, if you have some material and you want to sew up your own. Okay, so I've taken a large yarn needle and 1 strand of my yarn, and I'm just going to push the needle through. So that we can make our drawstring. Okay, so I have that pulled through. Now I am going to go add the beanbag filling. That can be really messy. You could also use polyester fiber fill to stuff, whatever you want, but the beanbag fill is a messy job. So I'm gonna go tackle that next off camera. You want to put your case into the floor poof first and then start filling it with your filling. So I filled up my liner with a full 100-liter bag of beanbag fill. Okay, it was a really messy job, but I got it filled up and shoved down into the floor poof. So now what I did is on the top, as you can see, I just added some of this polyester lining. So I've just put it over the top, tuck it all in just to make sure that it is nice and really full. And this is just going to help keep all those little balls inside. I also stuffed, when I pulled my drawstring tight, I just stuffed in just the little hole opening. I just stuffed some fill in there to hopefully keep that from all the little balls falling out. So anyways, this is what I have so far. I'm going to continue my decrease rounds. Right now I'm at doing 5 stitches and then decreasing the 6th and 7th stitch. So I'm going to continue on with my decreases. Okay, so I've been working on my decreases. I've decreased all the way down to 12 stitches, and then I did my final round of 12 stitches. Okay, I've put my poof down on the floor because it's quite big. I couldn't get it under my camera. But what you're gonna do for this final round here, I guess, to close it up, is you're gonna put it on your yarn needle, and then you're just gonna weave through the front loop of every stitch going around. So there's 12 stitches that you're gonna weave this through. And that is just gonna pull that hole right in really nice and tight, as you can see. Another tip I have when working these rounds is to make sure you pull the join. I was a little bit loose on my joins last night. I guess while I was watching TV, I wasn't paying attention, and the join is a little bit more noticeable. And then when I was keeping it nice and tight today, finishing it up, was definitely more invisible. So just make sure that slip stitch join, you really pull it tight. You can weave this. It was a real messy job getting this filled with that beanbag filling, but what I like about the beanbag filling is that the poof is really hard. Like, you can sit on it and it makes it really firm. So if you can persevere through the mess, it makes a really nice poof. But if you want to avoid all of the messiness, then just use some polyester fiber fill, or stuff it with pillows or old blankets. Okay, this needle is a little bit big for weaving, so I'm just going to switch out my needle and finish weaving that in.